What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Group Chat Football Live. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. This is our national college football show tracking the biggest news in the sport. We haven't been going live lately. We've still been putting content out, but we wanted to go live today. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about with you all. Spring football underway for some of the top programs across the country. We've got some differing opinions here from some high-profile coaches on spring football in terms of the publicity of it, whether it should be televised, whether you should be playing against your own team or maybe potential opponents. We'll talk about it all here on today's show. Talk some recruiting as well. Number one quarterback in the country, Jared Curtis, looks like he might be coming close to a decision. So a lot of stuff to get to today. Again, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate the support as always on this show. We started back in December, and the support has been awesome. So we appreciate everyone, and we're going to keep going now. Time to bring that content back up now as spring gets going really across the country. So with spring football, we've been talking about it here. Kirby Smart, let's start with him and Georgia. News comes out today that they're not going to be televising the spring game, which – some would say this is a weird thing. Maybe this is not a good opportunity to get your program out in the spotlight more. But there's been a similar sentiment from other coaches across the country who don't even want to have a spring game. So what do you make of Kirby Smart getting his way here and Georgia not having a televised spring game?
Very interesting because there's a lot of schools similarly situated to Georgia that are having spring games. So you look at the SEC. You have 12 SEC schools that are providing this programming to ESPN. Remember, there's a TV partner involved in all this. Usually the TV partner kind of gets his way, that's another interesting factor. But Alabama, Texas, those big SEC schools going to be playing their spring game on ESPN. Georgia, I guess with the leverage that you have being a two-time national champion in recent memory, is able to say, no, we're not going to do that. Also, LSU and Florida not going to have their spring game. ESPN spokesperson Amanda Brooks told Athens Banner Herald that they opted not to do, they meaning Georgia, opted not to do a televised stream game or the all-access show option. So I guess the other option is like an all-access spring show as opposed to like the game that runs. Smart says he plans to have a spring game. He told a reporter last Tuesday he plans to have a spring game. Doesn't mean it can't change. Kentucky was missing some players last year, defensive line that had to cancel the spring game. But, Kirby Smart's talking like he wants to have the spring game, just doesn't want to televise it. And the only thing I can think of is Georgia is the type of program that has tremendous depth. Obviously, they sign such good recruiting classes every year. And when you look at some of the names that transferred out of Georgia last year, 15 outgoing transfers. Now, some of them, they didn't mind losing these players. But you had a lot of guys that transferred from Georgia to the SEC or to a similar conference. Damon Wilson going to Missouri, that was a big ticket item. Anthony Evans going to Mississippi State. Troy Boyles, who's a very talented linebacker prospect from the state of Florida, transfers to Michigan. Sam Mpemba, another highly rated guy out of high school, hasn't played a lot for Georgia, going to Texas A&M. Jamal Jarrett, big defensive tackle going at USC, and Julian Humphrey, who played quite a bit, going to Texas A&M. So I think when you talk about like the Boyles and the Pembas of the world, or the Pembas of the world, these are guys that in a spring game showcase, you see much more of their snaps than you see during the regular season of the SEC schedule. And you knew them in high school; they were highly rated guys. Does the spring game make those players more likely to get poached from other teams and removed from Georgia's depth?
Yeah, without a doubt. And look, I think Kirby might have a good point in that. If you're a Georgia fan who can't make it to the game, I guess you have to rely on whatever the school puts out, which, of course, I'm sure will be even more restricted than what ESPN with a full broadcast would have done.
And, I know with, for example, Miami, right? We're very familiar with that program. I don't see them ever getting rid of the spring game because it's such a good recruiting opportunity. Now, if you're Kirby Smart and you have a big spring game in person with a lot of people there, probably more people because you can't watch it on TV. So you're, like you said, you're going to make the trip to watch it. that's just as good recruiting, most likely. You're not getting great recruiting just by people watching on TV. It's people that go, that see the experience, that are around it. So as a recruiting event, you could have it live and not necessarily make it put on TV. And it's a lot harder for, if you're a director of personnel at Kentucky or, West Virginia, right? Or just name the school that would be trying to poach some of these guys from Georgia's depth. You're not necessarily going to send a scout there, right? Maybe somebody, hey, who look good, but it's not like, hey, just click on ESPNU or SEC Network or whatever it is to see the spring game. So I think that is very much part of Kirby's calculus and planning to have the game, get the recruiting benefits from it, get the competitive benefits from it, but not televise it.
Someone who has a very different opinion on spring games is Deion Sanders. And he actually wants an opponent for a spring game, believes that teams would benefit greatly, says it's the pro model, which I was talking to you before we went live as someone who has been an NFL agent, represented players, and been at these joint practices between NFL teams. That is one of the most valuable parts of training camp, even more so than the preseason games. It's getting 3 or 4 days of practice of guys going after each other. You get a different look. You become very familiar with certain guys in practice that are on your same team. You go up against them every single day. You understand what their strengths and their weaknesses are, the moves that they're going to try to attack you with. And the intensity level's different, right? And Deion, I believe here, makes a very, very valid point that I think programs, coaches, players, everyone, of course, when unfortunately ever that first injury comes, people say, well, you should never have done this. That's going to be the risk associated with it. But every time these guys step on the field, there's a risk associated when you play the game of football.
Yeah, and Deion really looks at these things different than your average coach, and he looks at it with a marketing lens. So you look at his quote. He said, we got to sell this thing out. We got to pack this thing because the way the trend's going, you never know it's going to be the last spring game. I don't believe in that. I don't really want to condone that. And then he talks about playing another team. And he says to have a competitive game against your own guys gets kind of monotonous. You can't really tell the level of your guys because it's the same old, same way. Everybody knows each other. Towards the end, to your point, Pete, I'd like to style this like the pros. I like to practice against someone for a few days, and then you have the spring game. And I think the public will be satisfied with that tremendously. I think it's a tremendous idea. I've told those personnel who should understand that it's a tremendous idea. So I agree with him totally, quite frankly, for a program like Colorado. We talked about Kirby Smart on the other video as far as, why it makes less sense for him to do something like this. With Deion, he's not worried about his guys getting poached. He's the poacher. So to put this program on the pedestal, to let everybody see what you're doing, to create excitement amongst, your fan base. The score is not, it's like a preseason game. The score is not going to matter because you have second team, third team, whatever, but you're there. People can see you. You're being promoted. Colorado Buffaloes, a program that was an absolute power when I was a kid, was much different, Pete, than when you were growing up. Getting it in that national spotlight, I think, is huge. And I think
the running back Chris Brown. I remember him.
Yeah, well, they were actually pretty good that year.
That's what I'm saying. They were good that year.
They destroyed Nebraska, who then played Miami and in the Rose Bowl. Probably shouldn't have been in that game compared to like an Oregon team that year. Even Colorado, as far as where Colorado was playing at the end of the season at their level. But regardless, Colorado has not had that kind of national spotlight. This is a chance for Colorado to be the team that everybody watches. And look, after Deion put that out, that he wanted to play a spring game, what did we see, Pete? We saw a tweet from another kind of innovative coach that's trying to create a brand from one of these historic brands, a team that, when I was a kid, this was a top team in the country, is playing much better football lately, just like Colorado, and has been galvanized by a new head coach. And that is Fran Brown at Syracuse.
It's 13 minutes ago, hot off the presses here.
Hot off the presses. There's the story we're talking about here with Deion, and Fran Brown says, Deion Sanders, we will come to Boulder for 3 days. That would be something, because now you got Syracuse, a team in the ACC that's been playing good football, but is not Clemson, Florida State, Miami brand, despite putting more Hall of Famers than pretty much anybody. And then you have Colorado, a team that's won a national championship game in recent memory, right? I was alive for that. A lot of people listen to the show were alive for that. So there's not that many programs that can claim national titles in living memory of, a middle-aged person. So two kind of historic brands that are playing good football currently and want to keep playing and elevating and building that brand, playing a game like this, two dynamic head coaches. I think this would be the event of the spring and really a ton of fun to watch.
The question is, can it come together this quickly, right? I mean, that would be amazing to see, but there's no rules against it, right? And I think that's kind of what could be interesting about this whole thing. It looks like one of those situations that they're both saying it. What's the hurdle? Let's see how much they really want it, because if it's out there now publicly. But I agree, would be an awesome thing to watch during spring. And man, I would like to see something like we see during Senior Bowl week, where you get the cameras at practice. How about that?
Love it.
You get those one-on-ones. I understand there's going to be some stuff you're not going to televise, but it's not like they're going to be showing too much schematics during these practices. I think it's really a competitive. We see a lot during these camps, right? These high school camps. It's that in a sense. There has to be some structure to it, obviously, but it's a showcase thing as well, I think.
And it's also like, talk about the portal. Everybody talks about the portal as far as like guys getting stolen off your roster. If you are trying to maybe push someone out and then you do this competitive session and you're like, man, this guy's got a gear, he's a gamer. Like this guy, he was kind of going through the motions a little bit or got lost in the sauce when we were playing every practice against each other. But now he's playing another team and he's the guy that's the alpha dog. Maybe that's something we should keep an eye on, and maybe we should keep this guy around. So it also gives you a great opportunity. The opposite is true, right? Let's say someone wilts. It gives you an opportunity to evaluate your own personnel in a way that's helpful for you going forward.
And more than anything, how about the players? How motivated would these guys be to say that they're getting ready for a game in spring practice, or that week of practice is going to feel like a game for them? So I think because I think some guys, it's tough for them to get motivated knowing the season's still 6 months away, where yes, there's so much on the line in terms of fighting for your position out there. It's, if you can't get fired up for that sort of competitive atmosphere, then you probably don't belong playing the game in the first place.
Yeah, no, I agree with you totally. And this is what makes college football fun. When the rules are changing so fast, things just keep evolving in a way that you don't expect. I didn't expect this whole spring game thing to pop up. It started with one thing as far as the negative, right? Games being canceled, games being taken off TV. Now maybe you get new opportunities to have fun content in spring. This would be the funnest thing to happen to spring football since I can remember, since they started televising the games. So that'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Switching gears here to recruiting, and the nation's #1 quarterback, Jared Curtis, could be closing in on a decision. Got a couple powerhouses up near the top, rumored right now. Georgia and Oregon. Was a one-time Georgia commit, then decommitted, then Oregon was making a big push there, and Oregon's still very much in the mix, but it looks like the Bulldogs could be very much back in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, no, this is a player who committed to Georgia almost a year ago. It's March 17, 2025. He committed to Georgia March 23rd, 2024, decommitted in October, and now Georgia down the home stretch. This is a battle, right? He visited Oregon last week, visited Georgia over the weekend. This is an incredible battle between two of the best, if not the top two programs in the country right now, certainly from a recruiting standpoint. And a lot of people thought Jared Curtis was on a collision course with Oregon. Dan Lanning was going to get that done, but now you're starting to see Georgia get the momentum. Steve Wiltfong at On3, one of the most plugged-in guys around. He said the intel favored the Ducks going into these trips. This is the respective trips to Oregon and Georgia, but there's always been a lot of love for Georgia. We'll see where it falls. Curtis has been fluid through the process and has shown love to both programs. And, I mean, again, I think you hear Benjamin Woke talking about Curtis, and he said, the overwhelming belief is that Curtis and his family are trending towards the end of the process. There's no official timeline in place, but this one isn't expected to linger long. It's still too early to call either way, but there's a sense of confidence in Athens. So, you're starting to see Georgia buzz pick up. Again, going in, the favorite would have been Georgia, but now all this talk, it would have been Oregon, but all this talk about Georgia as you get close. And I've learned when you start to hear the buzz picking up late on a team, that's something to keep an eye on. And I think with Georgia, it seems like they're making a little bit of a run.
Yeah, and you see some of the clips here from his season last year. Roddy Nabulsi tweeted this out. This is when he saw him live there. So you get a better look than some of the huddle stuff, just how big this guy is. And you mentioned before the show, kind of a Matthew Stafford body type, D.
Yeah, Stafford arm too,
yeah.
Right? Another Georgia quarterback. It just comes off so easy. Staff and the arm angles too.
Yeah, throwing across his body and on the run, and then he has the athleticism as well. So I don't think they're going to be doing too many design runs with him. Not that he can't run, but you see him here moving and making these throws downfield.
And look, by the way, when I say that, it seems like Georgia's making a run, there's a very, very good chance that Curtis winds up at Oregon again. That's been, I don't want to say the expectation, but that's been the favorite. Just seems to me like now we're getting to the final stretch and it's getting even, right? And it's interesting to me just that Georgia never left, right? Georgia never left the picture, even after the decommitment, which usually when you get a quarterback decommitting from a program, that's it. He's kept in there. So very, very interesting battle. Again, two of the best. We'll see where it ends up. It could easily be Oregon. I wouldn't be shocked if it was Georgia. I know it's hedging. If I had to make a pick, I don't know, Pete, what do you think?
I'm going Georgia.
I was starting to lean Georgia. Actually, I was leaning Georgia when we started the show, but kind of just thinking through, man, that opportunity at Oregon to play for Dan Lanning and the way Oregon's recruited wide receiver with DeCorian Moore, who's the absolute best receiver in the country last year. Some of the things they're doing, you see Chris Henry kind of getting some buzz to Oregon. I'm gonna say that even with this Georgia surge, Curtis goes to Oregon to play with some of those outstanding wide receivers that they've been recruiting.
And look, anything can happen, but you'd imagine that after he already decommitted once, that this is going to be it for him, being that he's a quarterback, and those guys normally, especially the high caliber ones like Curtis, you want to lock in early and let the class build around you, not let the class, but you want to recruit guys to come play around you. So I would think that this decision would be who he's locked in with.
Yeah, this will be a lot of fun to watch. And this is a player that just exciting, man. He's productive, but it's really just a physical talent that draws you in with Curtis. It's just what can be, what's the potential, and really the potential is, number one pick of the draft when you talk about the body and the arm and the athleticism.
Keeping it on the topic of potential, we'll finish up with our last topic of the day. Nyck Harbor, obviously very talented player at South Carolina, has announced, well, I don't know if he didn't announce it. It's been reported that he's going to be fully focused on spring football, not running track for the Gamecocks. Was already missing the indoor season, but outdoor season starts next week, and he will not be participating with the track team. And look, Shane Beamer said it was his decision, but that he does believe that it probably held him back last year. Wasn't able to fully participate or really participate at all during spring football because of the track season. And this is going to give a really, really talented guy an opportunity to focus on one thing. Not that he didn't have the talent to be, a big time athlete at both sports, but you want to lock in and do something at the highest level, you probably got to pick one.
And this is such a unique prospect. He's been unique since he was in high school, but you look at the track times for a guy who 6'5", 235, right? That's a big receiver to start. When you look at these track times, 10-1-1 in the 100 meters, 20.20 in the 200 meters. I mean, this is a different level of track athlete. That's faster than Tyreek Hill, right? For comparison on the track at 6'5", 235. Now, of course, the question with Harbor on the football field, on top of what position he's going to play, he's settled in now a pass catcher, is the change of direction, right? Obviously on track, you're not cutting and running routes. You're going straight line. Can he change directions? And then can he catch the ball naturally? Here's what really encourages me about Harbor, even before hearing this news, that he's going to be focusing more on the gridiron than the track. You look at the first the first 5 games of Harbor's career, Harbor's season this year, second season of his career. He only went over 20 yards once, which was 2 catches and 40 yards against Alabama. So that big 31-yard catch for a touchdown. Every other game was under 20 yards. Then when you look at the last 5 games of his season, Vanderbilt, 43, Missouri, 69, Wofford, which is an easier game, 48, Clemson, 51 yards. And then the bowl game against Illinois, 61 yards, 4 catches. So he really picked it up in the second half of the year and finished strong in the bowl game. And the idea is that with a full year of football only, full offseason of football only, we already saw him participate in winter workouts with South Carolina. It could go to a whole nother level. And you look at Beamer's comments here. He said he's solely focusing on football right now, and that was Nyck's decision. That was something he talked to us about. We had some conversations around the bowl after the bowl within the last couple of weeks as far as what he wanted to do. I think he realized that he did a lot of good things in track last year, 10-10, 2020, but he missed spring practice. And I want to say it set him back, but it was more of a challenge to be ready for the season. I think he really just wanted to focus on football. That's where his focus is just football. So that was after winter, missing the winter track season, the indoor track season, now missing the outdoor track season. I think we've officially reached the point where we can say Nyck Harbor is a football player. And can he be the next DK Metcalf? That's the comparison everybody's going to have. We'll see here with a top quarterback in Lenore Sellers, offense with Coach Shula calling the shots, and just a really, really hot South Carolina program.
Yeah, I'm sure that Coach Beamer, when they were recruiting him, said, "Man, we'll let you play both sports. We'll let you play baseball if you want." I don't even know if he played baseball, but let you do anything you want. I'm sure that was part of the recruiting pitch to him, but deep down inside, that he wants to play one sport and one sport only, and that's football. And I think it should help his development without a doubt.
No question. And it's a program with just a lot of juice, man. I mean, with Dylan Stewart, what he did. Again, Washington, D.C., Nyck Harbor, Washington, D.C., out-of-state guys. Then you have Lenore Sellers. Could he make a run? He's going to be a dark horse
candidate. Noland, you bring him in as a high-upside quarterback as well in that room.
100%. Is Lenore Sellers going to be the number 1 overall pick next year? I'm not projecting that, but I promise you that's going to be an off-season discussion as you get closer to the season. Once let's say Cam Ward goes off the board number 1 here to the Tennessee Titans. People are going to say, who's the next Cam Ward that goes from day 3 type prospect to the number 1 overall pick? Lenore Sellers is somebody with his physical tools, his mental tools, and his trajectory that you could say that. Now, Dell Loggins goes on to Appalachian State, but Shula was with them last year, so that's a natural transition. And if, as Sellers kind of elevates, Nyck Harbor theoretically should elevate, because those two are going to be tied. And it's hard to have a better deep ball target than someone who's 6'5", 235, running 10-10 in the 100 meters.
Yeah, if you play the college football video game, you've been probably abused by him in the game. So people who play that game have nightmares playing against him without a doubt. Let's see if he can put that to make that a real life thing here consistently, because he's got the physical ability without a doubt. Group Chat Sports, hit that like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back doing a lot more of these live shows here. Keep it locked on the channel the rest of spring football as we keep you updated with all the top news across the country, recruiting wise, transfer wise. That portal, I see some names starting to enter, man. It's always there, man. And even if they haven't officially entered, announcing their intentions to. So we'll keep you guys updated here. Group Chat Football Live, Group Chat Sports. Like, subscribe. Thank you guys all for watching.
See you tomorrow.